So today we'll study origin of life. What do you mean by origin of life? These are the conditions and the mechanism involved in the creation of primitive life. So there were so many theories which are proposed for the origin of life. The first theory is theory of eternity. Second is theory of special creation. Third is theory of panspermia. Fourth is theory of spontaneous generation. Fifth is theory of biogenesis and biochemical origin. We'll be discussing first 5 theories here in this lecture, and this biochemical origin will be separately in the next lecture. So now the first theory is theory of eternity. Theory of eternity believes in the unchangeableness of the nature of the universe. The organism always exists, will remain to exist, and will always be there. So this theory was supported by Hutton. Hutton said that there is neither beginning nor the end to this world. This theory had no scientific evidence, and therefore this was discarded. The next theory is theory of special creation. Till the 19th century, people believed that the whole universe is created by supernatural powers. Like when you talk about Hindu mythology, Lord Brahma is the creator. Different parts of the body of Lord Brahma gave rise to different kind of organisms. Like head gave rise to man, devil and gods. Chest gave rise to birds. The goat developed from mouth, and the hair of the body, they led to the development of plants. Similarly, in Christian mythology, it was thought that the world was created in 7 days, in 6 days, sorry. The Spanish monk Father Sudres, who lived in 1548 to 1671, described the chronology of the formation of universe in the following way. On the day 1, earth and heaven was created. On day 2, sky was created. On day 3, plants and animals were created. On day 4, sun, moon and stars were created. On day 5, birds and fishes were created. On day 6, man and beasts were created. And day 7, the woman was created from the 12th rib of man. Next theory is theory of panspermia. This is a very important theory, so pay attention here. This theory is also known as cosmozoic theory. It was believed that the life was distributed in the universe in the form of resistant spores known as cosmozoa. When these resistant spores fall on any planet, and when they got favorable conditions, then they germinated and produced life there. This theory was also supported by H.F.C. Crick. Crick is a pioneer scientist, he is a Nobel laureate, and he is credited for giving the structure of DNA. Crick, in his book Life Itself, Its Origin and Nature, tells about the cosmozoic theory. The next theory is theory of spontaneous generation or abiogenesis. Now the term abiogenesis. Let us dissect this term. A plus bio plus genesis. A means no, bio means life, and genesis is origin. So the name says that for originating life, no life is required. Okay, life is created spontaneously. This theory was first proposed by Aristotle, who lived between 384 to 322 BC. Later on, Van Helmont performed an experiment in which he took wheat grains and sweaty shirt and put them in a pot for 21 days, and he observed that there were mouse were jumping in the pot after 21 days. I don't know from where the mouse came, but Van Helmont did this experiment and said that the mouse was created spontaneously. Next, Joseph Needham in 1747, he performed an experiment, and by the experiment he told that the life has generated spontaneously. Now let us look at his experiment. He boiled chicken broth in a flask so that all the microorganisms in the broth get killed. He left the broth as such, left for a few days, and he observed the broth turned turbid. Turbidity was due to the development of microorganisms in the broth. So from where these microorganisms came, he said they came spontaneously. Okay, so like that he tried to prove spontaneous generation was the apt theory for origin of life. Next is biogenesis theory. Biogenesis theory believes that life originates from life. Italian physicist Francisco Redi took fish meat in fact, and boiled it and then distributed the meat in 3 containers, like you can see in the figure: container 1, container 2 and container 3. Container 2 was sealed with a parchment membrane, and container 3 was covered by a muslin cloth. Container 1 was left uncovered. After a few days, he saw that no life developed in container 2 and container 3. There were no maggots nor the flies in container 2 and 3. Whereas in container 1, he could see maggots and he could see flies. The maggots turned into flies. So he said that because the flies were not able to enter the sealed jar or the cloth covered jar, therefore no growth took place on the meat samples which were kept in the jar. Whereas the jar which had no lid, the flies can enter inside, can lay the eggs on the meat, and the eggs developed into maggots, and these maggots later on develop into flies and they flew away. So like that he tried to prove biogenesis theory. His work was well approved by Abbe Spallanzani. Still many people have doubts whether this biogenesis theory is true or not. To end all these doubts, Louis Pasteur, who lived between 1822 to 1875, performed an experiment with a special type of flask known as gooseneck flask. What he did, he heated the neck of the flask and blew it further, glued it in a form of S shape. Okay, all the air which enters inside this particular flask contains microorganisms, but the microorganisms were trapped at the ash portion, whereas the air which had no microorganisms, it entered the flask. The flask contained yeast powder, sugar and water. So there was no growth seen in the flask after it was left as such for few days. Then what he did, he cut the neck of the flask. When he cut the neck of the flask, the air could enter inside independently. It was not getting filtered. And he can see that the broth there become turbid. It means the growth took place. Why did the growth took place? He said that air contains microorganisms or their spores who got favorable conditions in the flask and grew there. So, the theory of biogenesis was strongly supported by Pasteur's experiment.